Welcome to Masterpiece Miniatures. This is the second video in our strategy series about list building. Today we're going to be talking about metagaming and discovering winning moves. So let's talk about winning moves. Finding winning moves is going to require a little bit of play. You're going to need to know the rules, and you're going to need to know what your units do before you can discover them and how they relate to the game itself. Winning moves are simply moves that help you achieve victory against a particular type of list in a given scenario. So discovering winning moves is going to require a little bit of play. You're going to need to be able to recognize patterns on the playing field, and when you recognize those patterns or list types in given scenarios, you'll be able to react accordingly. And those are the types of moves I'm talking about. A winning move can be one single all-in unit, like a Stonehorn, or it can be multiple units, like a bunch of Bloodletters and some supporting units that I have here. And I'm going to talk about my winning moves strategy against ranged armies. So your typical ranged army likes to hole itself up in one spot and focus on important units and take them out. So the way I defeat that with Khorne, because Khorne is typically weak against ranged units, or at least the way I try to defeat it, is I try to get to my opponent as quickly as possible and just engage him. Ranged units are typically less powerful in close combat, so the idea behind this list is that I run the Murder Host Battalion, which is a battalion that gives me 2d6 movement on all of my Bloodletters and my Khorne Demon Hero. I also run the Gore Tide, as well as the Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster. So what I'll typically do is I'll set up 3 units of these Bloodletters here, and I'll see which unit gets the farthest. Typically I'll get one unit that moves 9 to 10 inches. I'll use my Slaughter Priest to cast Killing Frenzy on my Bloodletters, or rather that's a prayer. Then I'll whip that unit of Bloodletters that's run the furthest, and I'll use my Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster's command ability to give that unit run and charge and +1 to run and charge rolls. So at that point they'll have +4 to both run and charge rolls, and they'll be able to run and charge in the same turn. They'll gain +6 to run and charge rolls typically. They'll be running and charging the same turn, and they will have already moved 10 inches. So usually I'll get about 25 to 35 inches of movement out of that one particular unit, and they'll have bonuses to their hit rolls, so they'll be doing lots and lots of mortal wounds, and I'll just slam into my enemy. I don't really care whether it's his front line or his ranged units that I really want to kill. I'll just slam into him and kill as many things as I possibly can. Just inflict as much damage as possible. Typically that style of list won't be able to kill all 30 Bloodletters on the swing back. They'll do some serious damage, but not enough. And they'll be forced to contend with that lethal threat on subsequent turns. The second turn that I have, I do the same. The third turn, I do the same. If I'm splitting up my Bloodletters 30, 20, 10, and 10, I'll do the same on the fourth turn as well. And then I'll send my Bloodthirster in on top of all of that, and hopefully deal enough damage and occupy enough of their time and just enough of their units that while I'm doing that, I'm capturing all the objectives with my units. So this is a winning move against one particular list or army, and there are many armies out there that, you know, popular ones that you'll be facing that you'll have to be prepared for. I have a ton of other strategies that I use with this particular army to beat other armies. The main point I'm trying to drive across to you is that you have to visualize a path to win. If you can't see how you're going to win, then you'll likely lose. Alright, so let's talk for a moment about metagaming in Age of Sigmar. Metagaming is effectively playing the game outside the game. And what I mean by that, in Age of Sigmar, that typically means tailoring your list to beat the flavor of the month. Just figure out what the most common lists are going to be and make sure you can beat those. So some questions I've written down that you want to ask yourself when attempting to define the meta. What scenarios will you be playing during the event? Know the battle plan ahead of time, or what potential scenarios exist. Are there any house rules at the event? What are the most potent winning moves that your list has for each given scenario? So just remember, when building a list, always keep the meta in mind. Your meta could be your next door neighbor, local comic book store, or regional event. Size up the lists you're likely to face and make sure you have a path to victory. Keeping up with the meta can be expensive. Lists change, they are developed over long periods of time, and quite frankly, the counters to those lists change as well. So what I recommend to most people is that they pick an allegiance, whatever that may be. Buy the most important units first, and then purchase any niche units to round out their army as the meta changes. Over time, what you'll end up doing is you'll have this large force of units, so that when GW makes changes to War Scrolls and adjusts points, you'll be ready for that. You just it sucks. It's super expensive and it's very time consuming. But buy all the units in your whole faction. Build your lists on the fly. That's the best advice I can give. No, kill that part of the video. Really, just focus on buying all of the units that are necessary for that particular faction. In the case of Khorne, right now the most important units are, make sure you get some Bloodletters, make sure you get some Blood Warriors, make sure you get some Blood Reavers, a Bloodstoker. These super important. Get one Bloodthirster, and let it be whatever you want it to be until you figure out, wow, I like this one guy so much that I want to make it this model officially the thing that I want it to be. Maybe it's a Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster, who knows. Make sure you get a Blood Secretor. He's super important. Make sure you get some Blood Reavers. Make sure you get some Bloodletters. You don't have to buy 70 Bloodletters right off the rip. Get 20. There's a lot of things that come in start collecting boxes as well. So, do research. Figure out what the most important units are. Figure out what you see being played in most lists on the internet. And build lists and buy units in that manner at first, and then follow that up by filling in all the niche roles and spam units that you want to build in later once you've gained a little bit more experience. So just to reiterate, today we talked about winning moves. Winning moves are just moves that help you win the game given a particular scenario. You need practice to recognize those and to gain enough pattern recognition while playing the game to execute them. And then finally, defining the current meta, asking questions like, what are the most popular armies in my area, and what scenarios will I be playing, along with, when are those armies weak and when are they strong, and how can I use my army to exploit those weaknesses and keep my opponent from, being strong. Next week, we're going to be talking about the importance of playtesting, and that'll play into what I said a little bit more earlier about purchasing units and reducing the cost there and still keeping up with the meta. Feel free to leave comments below. I love talking to you guys about what your thoughts and ideas are behind list building. I'm sure I don't get everything when I create these videos, but hopefully for some of you they're a great starting point. So looking forward to the next video. Talk to you later. Bye.